Welcome to A Wash with Colour and the spectacular scenery of the High Mourns. If you're prepared to get off the beaten track, then the gentle slopes and rocky crags make fantastic painting locations. My guest today is no stranger to high peaks, and a little later I'm going to take him down into the lowlands to try his hand at an architectural scene in watercolours. Kilkeel is the capital of the Kingdom of Mourne, or so the locals would have you believe. Fishing, which has long been the lifeblood of this busy coastal town, may be in decline, but it still boasts one of the biggest fleets in Ireland. The landscape of the Mourns lends itself to the craft of painting. In this area the past is ever present and traditional building skills are carried on today. Well, tell me, Philip, when did the tradition of stonewalling start?
Well, the tradition of stone wall building started quite a few centuries ago. Whenever they began to clear the land for agricultural purposes, they can trace it way back to a couple of 3,000 years ago, some of these stone walls. And it was all dry wall. There's no mortar, no lime, no anything to help them together. And this single wall that we're looking at is a single ditch. It was built through balance, complete balance. The stones had to be worked. Every stone had to be worked. No line, no rule, nothing. Your eye measures everything.
And when did you get involved with it?
I got involved in 1958. I left school very early. With an uncle of mine, which was very good. He learnt me the trade. And a few years I picked it up. And I've been at it ever since that.
What's the secret to building a dry stone wall?
You have to read the stone. If I could explain it, building a stone wall is not like building an ordinary wall with brick or brick, because all these stones are individuals, just like ourselves, different shapes, different sizes, everything. Some go into place, some have to be persuaded to go into place. And you must know, by looking at that wall, you lay the bottom stone first, called the butt stone, that's the bottom stone. Leave that stone laid, then you look around for the second stone. Now, you must read that stone on the ground before you bring it over. You must say, that's going to fit there, nearly like a jigsaw puzzle. And that's the whole secret, and be able to read the stone without measurement or anything.
Why are there so many walls here in the Mourns?
Well, Mourne is a very stony area, you know, and they do serve a great purpose. First of all, to keep the stock at place, keep the stock in from wandering, right? They also are a great, terrific shelter belt. Now, when you look at a stone wall, you can look through the stone wall, little holes, as we say in it. Right? When the wind hits that, it doesn't flop over. It filters through. Now that makes it very easy living for the animals. I even saw animals in the winter time lying there in showery weather and getting dried with the wind coming through. And it's everlasting. It's not like fencing nor hedging. Nothing can destroy it. Fire can destroy hedge, can't destroy stone. Sprays can destroy wire, can't destroy stone. It's there forever.
It's not easy to make a living in these mountains, but the Mourne man is very adaptable, part farmer, fisherman and shepherd. and throughout all the hardship they've never lost their sense of humour. Did you hear the one about the Kilkeel man, who was asked was he a seafaring man? And he answered, no, I'm a far-seeing man. I had the wit to get out of it. And I had the good fortune to meet up with one such man, PJ Sloan, a farmer who had the wit to get out of it. But the draw of the Mournes proved to be too strong. Having left these mountains over 30 years ago, for the endless plains of Canada, PJ returned to work the foothills he walked as a child. It's a very old road, Dad. What was it used for?
Well, the road, it's, I believe in older days it was for main Kilkeel to Hilltown road, and farmers used it and people who wanted to go towards the Windy Gap and through. And they took granite, stones down to the roadway down there, and it was hauled by trucks and whatever.
You have a bit of an accent, and I know it's not from the Mournes. Where did that all come from?
I was in Canada for 20 years.
Right.
I inherited my dad's home. I came back here to live with my wife, and we were home here, and a little son came along. So we're all happy with it.
And what is it, PJ, that makes this area so special?
To come here at 6 o'clock in the morning in the month of June or July with the sun shining on you, the birds singing, up at the Eagle Rock, the eagles going, is fantastic.
What was it like to grow up here as a child?
Well, you grow up, you're wanting to play football, and you get the call, you get the shout at you from Dad, go check the sheep on the mountain. So you go wandering along, and whenever you're 12 or 14 going along and looking around, you get different thoughts. Whereas living in a city or something, you don't see these things. The occasional fox will pop out on you. Rabbits, just a dream.
Listen, PJ, I'm looking for my guest. I don't know where he's got to, but thanks a lot anyway. Well, in the end, it was probably much easier to let my guest find me. Dawson Stelfox is an architect by profession, but he is also a celebrated mountaineer, having scaled many of the highest peaks in the world, including Everest. Dawson, how are you?
Well, thanks. Yeah,
have a seat.
Good day. Yeah.
I've just been doing a bit of a sketch here of the tours on top
of Binnion.
Yeah. Just get rid of this, Dawson. So when did the interest in mountaineering begin, Dawson?
Well, I've been walking these hills for a long time. It's been in my blood since I was a youngster, really, and started in the Mournes, got the bug here, really, and then started travelling, to the other mountains of Ireland, to Scotland, eventually to the Alps, and then further afield, So it all started in the Mournes.
So it was from Slieve Binnion to Everest then?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and lots of other mountains in between. I mean, I think once you do get the sort of the bug and commitment to mountaineering, then that's it. You've got it for life, really, and you really do enthuse about it and become so committed to it that certainly, any spare time you have is devoted towards trying to get out into the mountains.
So in actual fact, you're the first Irishman ever to have climbed Mount Everest.
I was, yes, indeed, yeah. I was part of an expedition of 8 climbers and then other support team as well from all over Ireland, from climbers from Donegal, from Kerry, from Dublin, from Belfast. It was just really picking the people who we reckoned would work together as a good team and who had the experience to be able to climb it.
So do you still get a buzz out of climbing Slieve Binnion?
I do. I love the Mournes. Any weekend we spare, we'd be down here, and family, my wife and kids and family would be down here. And we still get as much of a kick out of climbing in the Mournes, It's always, you don't try and rate them one against the other, but the Mournes will always be special because it's where I started.
So I think it's nearly time we were headed down to the valley. We'll leave the peaks behind. I have a painting location in mind that I think you'll know very well.
Okay, Dermot, let's go.
Dawson's passion for climbing has also given him a deep appreciation of nature and the countryside, but he believes that we are in danger of losing some of its most important landmarks. Tell me, Dawson, what is the history of Hannah's Close?
Well, we don't know precisely the date of any individual building here, Dermot, but we do know that the Hannah family came from Scotland and settled here about the middle of the 17th century. And they built over the years what's called now a clachan, which is a family cluster of buildings grouped together for security, for shelter, and for sort of communal farming practices. And it's a very archaic form of settlement. There's very few left now, and it was surpassed really by the individual house sitting in its own farmland around it. But here we've got all the family dwellings, extended family houses really, built around a very tight area, with sort of communal land around them, fields that they would have shared in the agriculture.
Well, would there have been many clachans like this in Northern Ireland?
Well, they were very common throughout Ireland, but there's now very few left. There's only really this one and one up near Fairhead, up in the North Antrim coast, would be the best two preserved and are actually listed as historic buildings. And they're about the only two left really now. There's remnants of others, but generally what's happened is that a lot of the buildings have fallen into disuse, and you've got one individual farm has taken precedence over it. So they're very archaic, and as I say, they're very important now.
So a lot of the work that you do at the present time would be preserving buildings just like this?
Yes, I mean, really a lot of the work we've been doing here, and restoration of the close and some of the outlying buildings and other cottages, has been really trying to say these are important buildings. You know, they're every bit as important as the grand cathedrals and the city halls and the sort of the posh buildings, if you like, because these buildings represent where most of us came from. You know, most of us come from an agricultural or rural background. Most of our ancestors, even going back 2 or 3 generations, lived in buildings like this. And it's important to keep them because it gives that sense of continuity, of history, of culture, of knowing where we come from, of putting our own place in the landscape.
Well, I must say, Dawson, I'm your number one fan, because it's buildings just like this that make perfect locations for watercolour paintings.
Well, they fit in the landscape, don't they? I mean, that's it. They're part of the landscape. I mean, they're coming from a background where you're using local materials, local building traditions. They generally got trees around them. They're sort of snuggled into the landscape rather than standing on top of it. So I can see what you mean. I mean, they are very much, to me, they're part of the landscape that you're painting.
Well, Dawson, I suppose there's not much point in me asking you, have you ever drawn this before? Because I'm sure you've drawn it many times.
We've drawn the individual buildings, but I think what the normal sort of architects don't really show really is the positions, the relationship between the buildings. You know, so that's what you've picked up here, I think.
Yeah, and I suppose in your sketches that you're doing as an architect, you don't have a lot of perspective coming into play then.
No, most of the time we're drawing straight elevations and plans and sections and elevations, all the sort of straight views on. So rather than, I say, and one of the fascinating things about the close is the way the buildings relate to each other. You know, they're all at odd angles and they're all certain little glimpses of views through the buildings. You know.
Well, I've looked around the whole close, and this area of Hannah's Close here, where we're looking up between the buildings, and with the little red roof at the background, and the beautiful yellow George's, is that?
George's house,
yeah, the yellow house. Yeah. And this one here is Johnny's.
Johnny's house.
And I just like the way that they relate to each other with the angles and the varying roof heights. Yeah. It's maybe the best location for a painting in the whole close.
Aye. No, it's a very attractive area because you see you're not none of it's straight on at all, is it? You know, they're all on at their own angles and yet they're all relating to each other as well.
So very good. Well, how do you think you're going to handle this then?
Well, I'm relying on your expertise, Dermot. So, no, I mean, I think the fascinating thing is the glimpse to me of the red roofed barn building, sort of between the two gables. You know, and that's just the glimpse of that, and then the hills behind.
Well, the colours do work well together. The yellow and the red are very complementary, and then we have the grey roof on Johnny's here, and the white wall just to give us a left hand or right hand side to the painting. So, I'm going to hand the pencil over to you, Dawson, and we can get started. And what I would suggest you do is start with the corner of the yellow house.
Right.
That's about as much as you need, Dawson.
Right. Okay.
And I must say, I'm not surprised that you've done so well. It really looks very close to what we're looking at here. Now you can see the verticals are always vertical, and the horizontals fall towards the horizon as they go away. But that's enough about the sketch. We'll just go straight in now with the paint. So this is a mixture of ultramarine and light red, and with the big 3/4 inch brush we're just going to put on some sky colour. Now I'm going to hand over to yourself and off you go. Keep this above the houses, and then we can shape the clouds. Now I'm just going to take your hand there for a second, and if you want to shape a cloud, pull down, and this here becomes a cloud, and then we'll soften those edges. Right, I think that's enough of the sky. And you can see that it is a very simple sky. If we have a fussy scene, we don't need a fussy sky.
Right.
So, let me take that brush.
Okay.
Now, while we're waiting on that to dry completely, we can move on and put in the yellow colour of the walls.
Yeah.
Now, that is a mixture of winter yellow with raw sienna. That should give you a yellow ochre.
Right, that's interesting because it was yellow ochre was what was added to the lime wash on that building when we were restoring it, and that was what the family told us was the traditional colour that house was painted. You know, so
Very good.
So it's you've got the right colour there.
So we'll try that first of all and just see if it's strong enough, or maybe that's not far away.
Yeah.
So if you take that, you can wash over everything except that little plaque there,
Right.
and just cover the whole house with that.
Right. Okay.
Because if the door is darker than the underlying wash, you don't need to worry about
And
it.
you can go over to the windows and stuff
over
as well,
everything,
and,
yeah.
Over the doors,
Yeah.
Right.
Anything that's dark will go on top
Right,
of the light
right,
colour.
right.
But if you have a light colour underneath, you must retain that. And this gable end wall as well. I'll just fill that for you again, Dawson.
Right.
There you go. And start up here at the top now and bring that down. Right up to the,
Including the chimneys
Chimney.
as well, then, yeah.
and the side of the chimney. That's it. Just keep it nice and neat around the edges. Well, that's enough of the yellow. Now we can move on and put on that beautiful Bangor blue slate colour. That is
yeah.
Bangor blue, is it?
It is, yeah. The slates come Bangor, North Wales, and they came quite early into the Mourns because of the stone trade across and little sort of fishing boats, going across to Wales and Liverpool, Manchester, and brought back slates. So the thatch disappeared quite early in the Mourns, really. And so Bangor blue is what is really the prevalent roofing material now.
I'll be quite honest with you, Dawson. I always thought it was Bangor down,
Kind of
North down. Yeah.
Sorry, disillusion everywhere, but it's Bangor, North Wales.
Well, that colour is made from light red and ultramarine with a little bit of crimson into it.
Right.
And if we, first of all, find the top of the roof, just below the ridge tile, and then pull it down in the direction of the fall of the roof.
Right.
But
Right.
just be careful not to touch
Touch the yellow. Yeah.
because
So-
the blue will bleed into the yellow.
So across the
Yeah.
start
And then down. Don't take it right down to the bottom because there's a certain amount of algae growing on the slate, and it's always nice to show that.
Right.
And
yeah.
we'll feed in a bit of yellow towards the bottom so that it gives the impression of algae on the slate. And even there's not algae on it,
This.
it's always
Oh,
nice
wow.
to put it in anyway.
Around here, I would think there would
Yeah,
be.
just watch the yellow. Now keep a little bit of a barrier between the yellow and the blue just until it's completely dry. That's lovely. Now, just bring this down slightly more. That's it, you have it. You've good control of that brush, Dawson, I must say.
Well, it's not through practice.
Well, it must be the
It
same-
must be the same stroke as the pencil.
The pencil,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's fine, that's far enough. Now, we'll just go straight into the winter yellow, and with the blue that's on the brush, we're going to get a very light greenish colour. And just by running that along the line of the spouting,
Let it bleed into it a bit then.
and then encourage it to go up like that.
Right, yeah.
Do you want to try that? Just bring it across here. That spouting's very dark, so it's not going to matter if you haven't got
You're
it
going to have a
perfectly.
heavy black line.
Exactly. That's very nice. Well, we've moved it on quite a bit now, Dawson, and you can see that we have used the same technique to put the tile roof on the White House. With a very loose wash of a light blue, we have indicated that that is in partial shadow. And then the little corrugated tin roof on the back shed to give us a little bit of depth. So what we're going to do now is put a bit of a 3D effect into it,
Right.
and that should let us get the structure of the house. So with a mixture of light red and ultramarine in a very thin wash, I just wanted to cover the shadowed side of the building. That's it. And you
Including
can,
the window and everything then, yeah.
yeah, including the window because it's in complete shadow as well. How are you finding the technique yourself, Dawson?
It's fine, yeah. It's I suppose it's just knowing how to... It's the right strength of colours to use so that you get the colour coming through, really, isn't it? It's the critical thing here, isn't it? So you're not losing the yellow.
That's right. You don't want to lose the yellow at all, and it's just to give you that 3D effect, and you keep applying washes one on top of the other.
The actual line of the brush stroke is critical here. I mean, do you follow in any particular lines as you come down?
Well, as a rule of thumb, you're better to paint something in the way that it grows or goes. So if a tree, for instance, is growing up, you paint the direction of the brush stroke up. In the wall is going up and down, you know, so you either paint it up and down or back and forth. Now, I'm going to change brushes there for you, and just to give that shadowed side on the reveal of the window, just show a line of shadow coming down.
And across the top as well.
Exactly.
Then,
If you look out there, you can see that there is a definite colour change. That's it. And the other side, and down. That's quite a useful brush there for doing that, because it comes to a fine point. That'll do, don't worry too much. And this side of the chimney as well. Well, that's all the shadows in underneath the eaves and around the windows. So now we're going to go and work on this pathway, and we want to show recession in the foreground, in the path. But if you look at it, it's very, very grey, and I personally don't like that. I think grey things look very flat. So what we want to do is try and put a wee bit of life into it by using a nice tan colour, you know, a nice, if we can imagine that as cream and crimson.
Right. Good imagination.
So we're going to use raw sienna with some crimson and lots of water, just to give us that nice dilute mix. And I want you to start at the furthest point and pull that back towards you, putting
so the lines are sort of come back into a single point sort of thing, is it? Yeah, and then radiating out.
It's like perspective thing again, you know, where it's all disappearing off to a vanishing point. That's it. Now, while that's drying, Dawson, we want to put some texture in there, because it's not all, you know, as clear as that. There's lots of little bumps in it, and you've got heights and hollows, and we want to indicate that with texture. And we're going into the shadow colour again, which was ultramarine and light red, and just very quickly, this may look drastic at the beginning, we just pull a few lines through it like that. Now that doesn't it look drastic?
It does, yeah.
Now pull it quickly. That's it. And then we're going to take the same brush and we just wet that off, dry off the water, and then blend that through.
Right.
Just soften the edges.
Those are really just sort of as the eye sort of looking at it in terms of receding up the page.
Just don't take them all off now, just leave some streaks. But it leads the eye in to the focal point. That's just about dry enough now, Dawson, to go on and put into the stonework here on either side.
Okay.
So I'll take that one off you.
Alright.
And this is a mixture of burnt sienna and raw sienna with a little bit of ultramarine. And it's just to give a different tone between that and the stonework.
So are you picking out the individual blocks then at this stage, are you? Then, or are you going to...
We'll wash over everything as much as we can. But you see the way the granite on the wall has some white flecks?
Yeah.
It's not all the same colour. There's lots of white there. I don't know what that is. Is that old salvage stone?
Some of that's stone out of old buildings and things. So some of it's got lime wash on it.
Well, off you go and just leave some of that lime wash while you're doing that.
Okay. But you're actually going around the
I think it might be better just to do that,
just to pick out the stones themselves.
Now leave some white. That's it. That's lovely, yeah. Well, what about art at school, Dawson? Had you an interest in art when you were at school?
Well, I was never very good at it. I was interested in it, but I much more went down the sort of technical drawing route rather than the free expression line of it. So I was never much good at the freehand sketching and things like that. What about the top of the wall?
No, just leave
it for the moment then. So.
Well, funny enough, you should say that. I was more interested in the art and the technical drawing. I could never get straight lines.
You used to use a big ruler like that then?
That's lovely, yeah. Now do this, the same over here.
Just on the face again then?
No, you can do it top and face.
Top and face, yeah.
Try and join that up a slight bit there just to keep that uniform the whole way through. That's it. And then we'll put a shadow underneath on the back side of that stone so that you can fill that as well. And that as well, yeah. And then just bring that around with you. Now, can you see by feeding in the ultramarine and light red mix into the granite, it gives you that granulation effect.
They're sort of bleeding into each other as well, so those are both wet when you put it on.
That's right. Now try exactly the same thing on the other side, but use the number 8 brush. And I want you just to bleed it in on the side. Now it'll take very little of it, just down the side. If it creeps across the top, don't worry about it. But just here and there, and just let it find its own way in. Along here. Yeah. More towards the bottom, and let it find its own way up. Just push it, encourage it to climb. That's it. Lovely. And it's given a lovely texture to it, isn't it?
It is, real depth to it, isn't it?
Now do a few strokes across the top just to indicate.
And it goes across the line of the,
Yeah.
the top stones, yeah.
That's lovely. Bit more up there. That's still a little bit damp, so it should still bleed. You see, if the paint underneath is dry, it won't bleed at all.
Bleed in, yeah, so just get spots.
Yeah. And a bit here as well. Just a little bit. That's enough. Now, while you have that colour on the brush, I want you to put a shadow here. Cast by that wall onto the pathway. So there's the start of it. And just pull it down towards you. And it gets wider.
Getting wider as it goes down,
yes.
yeah.
Just a wee bit more there. Thicken it out slightly. That's it. Now, don't have a straight top on it because the wall's not straight at the top. Just have a little broken. That's it. That's better. And this here is up that side as well because you still have the shadow disappearing around the corner. Perfect. Well, it looks good to me, Dawson.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
I think it's near time you put your name on the bottom right-hand corner.
Okay, just about here. Somewhere then, yeah.
Lovely.
Okay, that's it then.
Well, what do you think?
Take it away and frame it. I'm very impressed by your ability. You know, so.
Oh no, come on!
Yeah.
It's all I did was guided you through it. You had it all to put on yourself.
Yeah.
Where are you going to hang it?
Well, I spent 2 or 3 years working on the restoration of this place, Dermot. So it'll definitely be going up on the walls at home to remind me of not just today, but the whole work in putting this place back together again. So it's great to have such a sort of personal sort of memento of the place.
And has it inspired you to maybe keep it up?
I think I'll be trying to do a few more, and whether or not they'll be as good as this one without your guidance, Dermot, but I'll certainly be trying it again. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something. The next time you go exploring Everest or any other mountain,
you'll come as well.
No. Throw a paint box in your rucksack.
Right.
Well, it may not be the Himalayas, but there are plenty of other beautiful painting locations to be found all over Ireland.